Museum of the Moving Image welcomes you to the Pinewood Dialogues Online, an archive of conversations with innovative creative figures in film, television, and digital media. Visit Museum of the Moving Image in New York City or online at www.movingimage.us.
Please welcome Tim Burton. Okay. Congratulations. It's a great movie. And we just finished a retrospective year of your career. A lot of people saw all your movies, so this applause is for an amazing body of work.
What's the fence back there for?
Some of your fans were a little worried about it. So, yeah. So actually what I want to ask you about first is...
We'll feed the back row later. Don't throw any peanuts.
We have your producers up there, for one thing. So
where's the key?
The film is based on a very wonderful, small, sort of short book by Daniel Wallace. And it's a book that's almost like a sketchbook in style. It's got sort of episodes, short chapters, and almost has a feeling of one of your sketchbooks. If you're doing a completely straight adaptation, you would have ended with the big fish in the river when the son goes to the river. And then the funeral, the sort of last section, I'm assuming was your invention.
I read the script before I read the book, and I was glad I did, actually, because I think it was a case of where John, the writer, actually helped kind of focus the material. I mean, I think... in some ways it's good to not have a novel that's extremely well known, this
right.
big, thick, heavy, thing that everybody loves, just because I think it's easier to adapt into a film somehow, a little less daunting. So I thought that John took what Daniel seemed like trying to do and just helped focus it. So
and this is John August who wrote Go and Charlie's Angels, right? The Full Throttle, I believe. Okay.
That's right. Hard to believe. The same guy, multi-talented.
Versatile.
Yeah.
Okay. But you read the script before the book.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And like I said, I think that he did. There was a freedom to what he did that just seemed to be not under the heaviness of, like I said, a classic, well-known novel.
The film sort of begs the question of your. It's such a personal film, or such a deeply emotional film. I usually don't ask personal questions, but I'm sure this must have had some resonance in terms of your relationship with your father, and you just...
Yeah, a little bit, but it had actually more to do with Son of Godzilla. That was such a touching father and son movie that I never forgot as a child. And, no, but yeah, I think it's a thing where, everybody loses a parent, and no matter what your relationship is, that it obviously cause for reflect, and I found that even though I wasn't really close to him, that I still had lots of emotions that were all over the place. And I thought that this film, when I read it, was a good way of sort of visually and, since it's a film, exploring those sort of feelings which are complicated and hard to actually put into words.
Yeah. Now, the film just has a mythological feeling. I mean, it has the feeling of a sort of classic story, a classic fable. And I'm just wondering if you could talk about your approach to the style and look. I mean, this film just has such a great physical look to it.
Well, I mean, I grew up loving movies, so I realized that I love sort of the kind of mythology, folk tale kind of, because that's basically what movies are as well. So, from like Jason the Argonauts on, where you've got sort of classic sort of mythological representations of things, which, the magical town or city, like all these sort of images, so that they were just sort of variations on all the kind of classic imagery that way, and symbols.
One thing I love about the movie is the way you used the real locations. I know with Sleepy Hollow, that was a case where you had to wind up building most of what we saw, but I think here the landscape of Alabama, the rivers in Alabama, seem to play a key role.
It's nice to go to a place that and just soak up the vibe of the place. I mean, you do, just talking to people and just the light. You do get a flavor of something that you can't get if you're shooting wherever on a sound stage or in Los Angeles, or So it was good to go down there and soak up the vibe and the chicken fat and all that other stuff. Whatever, yeah.
And apparently you were based in a sort of very sort of sleepy small town.
Yeah, I think I was actually staying, it seemed like where they shot Blair Witch Project somehow. But I don't know, the terrain looked awfully similar to me. Yeah, but you're there working, so it's not like you're there to sightsee. You
right.
sort of see it in a more under the surface way, which is always more interesting.
How involved were you in the production design area? The house.
I showed up a few days during the production of the film.
Edwards house, the Bloom house, is beautiful, and that was built. That's not something you found.
That was most of that was there.
Really,
we just added a little bit to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing. There, it was a film where we were fairly quick schedule, so we were shooting very quickly. So we had to move sometimes 3 locations in a day. It's like. You put on your baseball outfit, and he, put on it. He did like 4 sports in one day. So
really?
We were like moving around a lot, and so, we didn't have an opportunity to overbuild a lot of stuff. We built Spectre and all, but
right.
It was important though to use as much live. I mean, we didn't do even we didn't even do a day of blue screen. We did everything. It just sort of needed a handmade kind of quality because of the nature of it and the stories. We tried to keep the effects as human as possible and doing them as live and some in camera. I mean, we did do a little bit of stuff, but always kept it, as much real as we could.
Yeah. And could you talk about your work with actors? Sometimes the visual style is what's talked about most with your films, but there are so many great performances in the movie.
Well, we were very lucky to get good actors, and it was an interesting case because we couldn't think of just, in the case of like Albert and Ewan and Allison and Jessica, you couldn't quite think of just one person. You had to think in tandem, and so that was interesting and difficult. And but we were I just felt lucky every day because they were really good, and we shot all out of sequence, so it was not like it was a real puzzle that way. So. I like working with actors that don't really care how they look. So, they're kind of like, there's an openness to them, and they're kind of more, I find, adventurous and kind of open to trying things.
Some of the characters, or a lot of the characters in your films, are much more introverted. I mean, this is a real great extroverted character, and I'm just wondering what it was sort of like working with this character of
well, it was
Edward
fun,
Bloom.
I mean, that's why Albert is so great, because he... you can't. Somebody either has that kind of thing in their personality, and so it's just. And when you're around somebody like that, you kind of get the joy of that, and you also get, from the son's point of view, the sort of positive and negative of the whole thing. So it was an interesting challenge to get the sort of positive, negative between those two characters, and.
And was Albert Finney cast first because you and...
Well, we had to kind of do it together. I mean, that's the thing. It's like we couldn't go out and go Albert and then not get you. So I remember seeing a picture of Albert Finney and like in Tom Jones, and it struck us that it was very much like Ewan, and then we pulled out. There a couple of years earlier, there was one of those People magazine separated at birth type of things.
Right.
So we showed us, see, People magazine thinks it's a good idea too. So. Sanctioned by casting. Yes, thank you. That'll be the only thanks. No,
the dialect there's a real nice quality to it. I mean, it feels sort of an old-fashioned. I mean, it feels like Southern dialect, but it's not sort of.
Well, well, that's the thing. I mean, I realized after deciding to do the film, I like quietly to myself one weekend shortly thereafter, I said to myself. I hate Southern movies. I really, I don't. There's a certain thing about it that I just don't like. So I didn't tell anybody that. But it was important there to kind of get. I mean, I remember liking to Kill a Mockingbird and feeling like, well, there is a lyrical aspect to the language, and so we tried to go for what was sort of a more poetic cadence and a little bit less of the, come on, tell you a story sitting on the porch with a mint julep type of thing that I always equate to it. So they were all very good at trying to capture that other type of slightly more lyrical, poetic cadence to it.
Yeah. And how did this tie in with the way you shot the film? If you could talk a bit just about whether, I mean, there's a poetic quality, I think, to the compositions, and there's a simplicity and beauty to the way the film looks. If you could talk a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't storyboard it as much. I mean, we do storyboard, but I don't pay attention quite as much, just because it's, as you work with actors, you realize, it's just, that's the fun, and so you get enough of an idea, and then you kind of, especially when you're fighting with the weather and locations a lot, since we're outside a lot, so, you try to keep open to things, but that's the fun part of it, is the shooting of it. It's the hardest part, but it's the most interesting, and just trying to find a balance from the stories to the reality, and again, not so it didn't really turn on and off like a faucet, but it was a bit more stream of conscious. So, that was always trying to be aware of that throughout.
Yeah. And what kind of production was it? Was in terms of difficulty? There's sort of a, again, the sort of intimacy and simplicity to the story, but you have lots of animals and lots of sets and what?
Lots of animals. That's always yeah. Well, and we're also in like a tornado zone. So like with the scene where we were shooting Danny, naked in the forest. The next day was 3 feet underwater. So we had a whole circus that was. We shot, so we were quite lucky. But I mean, the tent almost blew away in a tornado. And
is there any film that you've made that you would have done differently?
You mean like not do it, kind of a thing? Sure. I mean, I don't look at things that way. I think that I sort of treat them all, because you put a lot into it, even whether it's good or piece of crap, I still put as much, you put as much into it anyway. So, I think somebody once said, they are kind of like your children, they may, have flaws, but you still kind of are close to them. So, yeah, I always look at them more like little time capsules and things. So I if it's got rough edges and all, which they do, it's okay to me,
And what was the decision process like to make this? I mean, you've done 2 very huge productions before this.
Well, this was nice because, again, it had a script before there was a release date, which was nice. So that was a chalk-up one for that. And it was a script that everybody liked, which, again, whoa, when does that... I can't remember that one happening. So it was not, it was a very... it's amazing all the other stuff you go through when you don't have those what should be number one elements, right off the bat, and so it was good for that reason too. It was
great. Batman. Will Batman come to Broadway?
Yeah, I think it's going to go straight to an ice show. No, I don't know what they. I hung up my tap shoes many years ago. I don't know. It's I have no plans for that one.
Will Batman be released on DVD like that?
Yeah, well, that's a sort of a Warner Brothers thing. But I would imagine now that they finally realize it, DVDs are kind of here for a while. Yeah, so I think they might. I think they were kind of holding out for a while to see how that was all going to go. But yeah, I'd like to do that sometime.
Okay, Carl the Giant. Could you tell us about him?
I believe he was a bouncer in a Philadelphia nightclub for a while. I think he trained as a lawyer. He's amazing, guy. When I met him, just something about him and his voice and just what he goes through all day. You knew he understood the part. So, but he just had a quality to him that I thought was really nice and he's afraid of heights, which is kind of ironic. No, but really, he's an amazing, good guy. Yeah.
Okay, if you can talk about Danny Elfman's score for this
and other
film.
Things. Yeah, I mean, it's always with Danny. It's like try to be, a character, and it was, it is like a character. So it's somebody that needs to, when you're dealing with the tonal all over the place, find the right integrating moments, and it's I always enjoy working with him because it's always I felt something slightly different and new, and for him, and so I thought he did a beautiful job on it. Yeah.
If there's some sense, I mean, the film ends with this beautiful passage about stories living on forever, and obviously that's what filmmakers do and hope to make movies that will, last. Was there a sense when you were making this that this was going to be a movie that...
No, you never think... No, you just... No, when you're making it, there's the joy of making it, and there's so much other things. Like I said, when I was saying earlier about a release date before a film is out, before there's a script, it's like all that does is cuts out the process of doing, which is, I think, when you're there on the set and you're the weather and the actors. I mean, it's an immediate moment, which is so, I think, beautiful and important. Yeah. And you never want that to get lost by thinking about what's going to happen or where it's going to go or that. It's just the joy of doing it.
Okay, what will be on the DVD for this?
Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of it so much. I mean, the only time I think the only time I'm doing it, I mean, I'm not putting them in the movie, is for the Ed Wood DVD, where I'm going to put in some separate scenes just because I thought they were interesting on their own, not integrated into the film. But I don't know, you also like a little bit of time. I think, you just finish something, you like a little bit of distance to kind of sort of take it all in and soak it in. So hopefully there'll be a little bit of time to assess and kind of analyze what was taken out, and not a whole lot, because I don't, you shoot, try to edit as we go, because it's like schedules are so quick. It's, the idea of shooting something and having a 3.5 hour film, looking at it like a week after you finish and have to cut an hour out, it's just too painful of a idea to have it that quick. So try to do it as you go along and not shoot too much extra stuff. Well, I got the script was sent to me by the producers in the studio, and so it was, like I said, it was nice to get something that people liked and they wanted to do, and not have to go through. Usually, you could spend 6 months, a year going through some thing to either get the script or get them to want to do it and all of that. So, pretty clean that way.
Oh, rumors about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in terms of...
Well, we've got a tie-in with McDonald's, so I guess it's real. It's all in. The mark of reality. No, I don't, again, I could try to get a script, and I try now. I've done enough where I've done yes to things where just, because I get all into the drama of kind of, will we get a script, will we, won't, before it comes out? I don't know. Okay, so I just feel like I kind of got caught up in that, but it's a little. So I'm trying to watch that one in the future.
Your films are very imaginative and sort of fearless, and just how did this evolve? Because from the very beginning, your films really do seem to spring from that.
And I guess I feel lucky to working at Disney, where it was like probably the worst time in the company's history, which allowed me the opportunity to do a couple of short films, which, if I had been there at the time when it was successful, I probably wouldn't have gotten the opportunity. So it's always been a weird dynamic where I've been able, they kind of let me do whatever, So I've had the luck of kind of being able to do what I wanted to do. And so, once you get that, you don't want to go back, So, I mean, I don't think about it any other way, really.
In terms of, you've talked about your childhood, growing up in Burbank as being sort of, in a funny way, almost similar to this, Edward, growing up in a small town and wanting to get out of it. I mean, did you relate to your childhood to this film?
Well, yeah, I mean, you relate everything. I mean, I think you have to relate everything to what you do, just because that's your only reference of how to get something done and achieve something. So, yeah, you try to. I actually identify with every character on some level. Even if it's a dog or a woman or any kind of character, or a bird or a ape or whatever. It's like you try to just relate to it. Mm-hmm. I guess especially growing up in the Hollywood sort of system, you get labeled, and I've always I don't like to think too much about myself. I mean, I like to think about the material and think about what you're trying to do, but I don't try to think about myself so much, because it's like, I've been spending my whole life trying not to think about myself. So, the point is to just kind of keep fresh and not make yourself into a thing, It's like you just kind of remain a human being and try to do the things that interest you and see what happens.
This is a sort of jump, but you became a father about a little over a month ago, so how has that changed you?
It's the weirdest thing, people like, you grow up and people call you weird or other people weird, and it's actually the weirdest thing that you could ever do with this thing, and we're all a result of it, so it's amazing.
Okay, do you have a desire to make a straight-up horror movie?
I don't know if I could be really ultimately really scary in that way, because it's a real thing to do that. And I think I had, such a love of them, and they actually made me so happy that I never treated them as hard. I treated them as like, I guess they're like my Rocky kind of movies, the life-affirming, da 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 da, Frankenstein up on the steps, blaring music, But I mean, I do think that so I kind of maybe come at it from a different way. So I don't know if I do love it, so I would always think about it or entertain it, but I would like to try it sometime. I just don't know if I could be quite scary enough.
Okay. Do you like working with actors that you've worked with before, or
both? I mean, what's fun about working with somebody like Johnny. I've worked with three. It's fun because you get to see them do different things each time, and that's a real energy that's unique to that specific kind of thing. When you work with people that like playing characters and doing it, it's a lot of fun to see them change. And then it's fun to mix it up because you meet somebody new and you get a whole new energy with that. And so they both can be, I've felt for the most part just very lucky because it's being around creative people, it's not stupid, but it's like that energy rubs off on everybody and it's just a lot of fun.
Talk a bit about working with Ewan McGregor because that's such a bold performance, and it has to be. Well, I mean, it has to be perfect to work.
Yeah, no, and I think everybody had a particularly tricky job, and his was to play a sort of romanticized version of a character. So to do that while still keeping it a human being, was really, really good. And it was kind of a bad joke. It's like, okay, wrestle with the wolf today, there's a whole chasing of a pig, which is cut out. There was more animals for the yeah, that's a good DVD. Yeah, all right, more animals will be. No, but I mean, he's just got such an openness, and to do that kind of open-hearted stuff that he does in the film, which is, is very difficult. I would find, to kind of be that sort of open-hearted and to get the idealistic thing, to get the comedy, but also to keep it a human being. I mean, very, very good, really good.
Okay, how do you choose your cinematographer and convey your vision to your cinematographer?
Well, the last couple of times I go with people that don't speak English very well, so that suits me just fine because they say the same of me. That was good, that's a very, you have to like, it's like there's a few people that you have to like because they're around you all the time and it's part of your whole thing. So it's nice to like the DP and the art director and all. But no, it was, you go with somebody that you look a little bit at other people's work, but not too much. It's a little bit about how you relate to them, and Philippe was good because he liked to work quick, and we sort of needed to, and it sort of keeps an energy going, and he sort of got the feeling of sort of trying to sort of stream of conscious up the kind of, so it doesn't like I said earlier about the stories and the reality stuff. So, it's just it's like making up a relationship quickly. It's like that. Got to be kind of that deep.
And we have an exhibition of your artwork upstairs, and it's been said that you use your sketches and your drawings to convey ideas to your cinematography.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that way, because it's like, I also like people that will look at something like that and not be literal about it, because they're obviously not literal sketches that can be translated, you know, literally. So somebody who gets it on that sort of emotional level, that's the kind of person that I like that way.
I was wondering if this another jump, but the Wizard of Oz, I just sort of kept feeling like there was this film echoed the Wizard of Oz to me, and I wonder if that was conscious at all or not.
Well, I don't know. It wasn't conscious, but I mean, it's such those kind of movies. But you would also say any movie has an impact. That's
right.
The one that has an impact. Of course, all these movies, but I don't know. We never consciously said anything about that.
And somebody was going to ask this.
Yeah.
This is your third Edward film. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I didn't play this. The other two I planned. This one was the name, and so I. Yeah, no, I know. Well, I know it is true. I will think enough about myself to go ask that question. What's it with? Because I don't really like the name Ed. Actually, it's I thought I always have circus images, but I always hated the circus. It's you kind of do. I don't know. So it's the Ed one I don't get. I'll let you know in a couple of years after some more therapy.
How long did it take to shoot?
About 60 days, something like that. 60, something like that. Yeah.
Oh, did these pairs of actors work together?
No, but you know what? It was interesting because I thought, that they spent a little bit of time with each other. But, it was interesting because the challenge on it was, Ewan wasn't playing exactly, he was playing it, but he was also playing it as a sort of romanticized version. So, and again, like I said, we had this weird schedule where Albert shot and Ewan only shot a couple of days in there. So it was more of a case of them spending a little bit of time, but it was not this overkill of them going, well, let's both do this and that. Because I felt they're also both kind of intuitive actors, and I think they like to approach things, I sensed, on a certain level. So there was some time spent, a little bit of that connection, and then I sort of let them go because it felt. And I understand it. It's a certain type of, you get enough rehearsal in, but not too much, because it's the joy of being there on the set and doing it was where they really want to go.
Okay, well, again, I want to invite everybody to go upstairs and see the exhibition of Tim Burton drawings, and congratulations again, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for coming. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. The Pinewood Dialogues at Museum of the Moving Image are made possible by generous support from the Pannonia Foundation. To learn more about the museum, visit www.movingimage.us.